Hello and welcome to this exciting event, Disrupting Hunger for People and Planet, coming here live from COP27. We're here at the UNFCCC Pavilion at COP27, which is one of the prime pavilions actually here. So I'm really happy that all of you have joined us here today or also online. So thank you very much for being with us. It's really exciting to come together and celebrate innovators, forward thinkers, some of the pioneers in tackling climate change, but also disrupting hunger. And what we're going to do today is actually then talk a little bit about why we're here. We're going to hear pitches from 4 innovations and startups, and then we're hearing from a panel of experts that's very diverse. And I'm sure you're going to love this because it's from the public sector, government, venture capital, but also the multilateral fund for tackling climate change. So bear with us, it's going to be really exciting. My name is Bernard Kovac. I'm the head of the World Food Programme's Innovation Accelerator. It's actually my first time at COP27, but there's also a reason for that. Now, as a lot of you may know, the full agro-food chain, and it's everything like from farm to what lands on your table in the fork, accounts about 1/3 of global greenhouse gases that are man-made. Now think about that in a conversation that we're talking about, like we need to tackle climate change, we need climate action. Of course you need to talk about the 1/3 of greenhouse gases that's there on the planet. This is why the conversation of food security, agriculture is very relevant in the realm of climate change. On the flip side, you also see that the number of acutely hungry people, and these are people that are marching towards starvation, has more than doubled in the last 3 years. From 135 million people, we are now at 345 million people that are marching towards starvation. And this is really, really drastic. Now, when you think about this, why is this happening? Well, of course, it's because of conflict, but it's also climate change, COVID, and most recently then also high food and high fuel prices. So when you think about all those factors, like those are some of the most vulnerable people on the planet. They are the ones that when there is a shock, when there is a disaster, when there's a drought, they get hit again. And so it's not just a moral obligation, but it's also something that if we're believing in a future where everybody has a healthy meal, no child goes to bed hungry, this is really one of the opportunities where we need to tackle climate change. And similarly, we need to make sure that our agri-food systems are regenerative. They actually are inclusive. We have the full cycle in place, so we actually can move ahead with that realm. Now, you probably know the World Food Programme, but it's the world's largest humanitarian organization, saving lives in emergencies, but also changing lives. And that could be a range of activities, including climate change adaptation, tackling climate shocks. So you see the whole range of activities in our organization, actually, also when you're thinking about what we are doing moving into the future more sustainably. Why? Because we're doing this preempting some of the challenges right now, so we don't have to respond later. And you may have seen us because the World Food Programme is active in a total of 120 countries and territories, reaching 128 million people across the globe. And this is one of the aspects that we're actually working on. All of these operations are little experimentation hubs. And they do things at scale to actually tackle climate change while combating global hunger. Now, my role at the World Food Programme Innovation Accelerator is to identify, support, and scale those disruptive startups and innovations that can help us end hunger and also tackle climate change and other global goals. And I have to thank our partners that have believed in us from the early days, which includes the German government, the Ministry of Economic Development and Cooperation, the German Federal Foreign Office, and Bavaria. Really, this was just an idea. Can we use startups and innovations? They believe that this can be something that can go to scale. Also to thank our other multi-year partners, the government of Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and USAID, where without the support, we couldn't actually make this happen. And a lot of the other bilateral partners that are coming together. Now, what we're doing, we're actually running an accelerator program for the World Food Programme. which is the core, or in about half of what we do. We work on innovative finance, like working on what's for us, for instance, like venture debt fund, an equity investment fund, and then also running what we call SDG acceleration accelerators for other global problems, like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation on primary healthcare, COVID-19 vaccine delivery, also climate change or education. These are the types of innovation programs that we believe we need to open source the knowledge that we create. We need to create more impact by partnering, by working together. But now, what are you actually going to see here today? In our process at the accelerator, we typically start with an innovation challenge or looking for startups. In the lifetime of our accelerator the last 7 years, this is 8,500 applications that we've received. Then the best 8 to 10 teams go to our innovation bootcamp. They then actually receive training from experts, could be from the industry, humanitarian experts, rethinking their solutions, their problem, technology, marketing coaching with a pitch event in front of a global audience like here. And then the best teams go on into our sprint program where they receive up to $100,000 of cash, hands-on support, and also connection with our field offices, which just goes to show at the World Food Program, each and every country office is actually an innovation lab on its own, because we constantly innovate. It could be on new program response, on new funding models, on new activities we're doing together with partners. And then, the best teams go into scale-up enablement, which is 22. Now, you also see on the slide, we run those programs globally, virtually, and also in person. And we also by now have dedicated regional field innovation hubs, for instance, in East Africa, in Colombia for Latin America, but also on country level, which could be like in Kenya, South Sudan, but also here in Egypt, actually like their own innovation teams, where we believe it really makes a significant difference for the strategy of the World Food Program to do that. Now, if you're asking, well, that sounds nice, but all those innovations and startups, does that ever go to scale? Well, the easy answer is it does. So by the end of last year, the portfolio of innovations we've supported in total has positively impacted 9 million people already, and we're scaling further. Every single year since we started, our portfolio has doubled the impact of like the people that we can reach, and they've also raised a total of $180 million of grant funding, not counting equity investments in startups. So now this just goes to show some of these innovations have been very, very small in the beginning, maybe done a pilot with 100 people, but now they reach millions. In the climate space, this is where our climate response of the World Food Program is also an innovation response in the World Food Program. So this is where we are talking about and you see this here in the chart here, is like it's anticipate, restore, protect, and energize. It's actually across those 4 pillars that we think about in our climate response, but at the same time about innovations. So it's not only about, of course, like how we prevent and prepare, but also how do we adapt? What happens, and particularly in developing countries, a lot of times the people who we're serving, they're already suffering from droughts. They're already suffering from land degradation. What can we do to adapt? What can we do to find sustainable solutions that can actually help, get to the next level and move us into a future? Now, with this, I'm very happy to now go into the really, really exciting part of this session, and we're going to hear pitches from 4 innovation teams. There are non-profit teams from inside the World Food Program where we use digital public goods, but also work with private sector and a for-profit startup. So now, with this, I want to say thank you again, and stay tuned for the exciting innovation that are now going to come. Now with this, Olipa, over to you.
Thank you, Bernard. And Olipa Zulu. I'm a program policy officer with the World Food Program coming from Zambia. I'm an agriculture economist by profession, and for the past 8 years, I've been working with rural communities, supporting them to adapt to climate change through various innovations. And this afternoon, I'll be talking to you about one such innovation, which is the post-harvest loss venture and it's really aimed at supporting smallholder farmers reduce their post-harvest losses. So one might ask, why post-harvest losses? I think the discussion is really around climate change. Firstly, climate change is already affecting our fragile food systems, I think more so in Africa. If it hadn't been for climate change, food productivity would have been higher by 21%. In addition to the reduced productivity, we've seen that 1/3 of what is currently produced worldwide is lost. And in sub-Saharan Africa, this value can actually go up to 50%. So then climate change and post-harvest losses then create a double burden, especially for the rural communities. To address this, we've been implementing the post-harvest loss venture using a holistic approach that helps or supports reduction of post-harvest losses using sustainable, innovative business models, working with different partners. We do this in 3 ways. Firstly, we create awareness as well as promote utilization of sustainable and efficient post-harvest loss technologies, working with both the private and the public sector, as well as creating demand for these technologies. Secondly, we support the scale-up or adoption of these farmer-centric post-harvest technologies. For instance, we have the hematic storage solutions, the bags, the silos, which we've been doing in a number of countries. Thirdly, we work strongly with the private sector by supporting implementation of innovative business models aimed at providing post-harvest loss technologies to make them accessible, affordable to the rural communities, while ensuring that there's commercial viability along the value chain for the private sector actors. This is the 3 ways that we implement the post-harvest loss venture. We have been implementing for the past 2 years, and we're currently in 4 countries: Zambia, where I'm from. We're also in South Sudan, Rwanda, and Mozambique. In the last 2 years that we've been implementing, we've been able to reach about 800 plus people, and majority of which are female. Those people have been able to reduce their post-harvest losses by between 30 to 80%, depending on the country. And this has translated in an average of about 35% increase in income. In addition to that, we've worked with 12 top-end private sector companies to engage them, and they are currently providing appropriate post-harvest loss technologies to rural communities using viable business models that are homegrown. To continue supporting post-harvest losses, because we see this is quite critical if we are to feed, I think, the world in the face of climate shocks and other stressors, we plan to expand by scale and reach. So by 2025, we intend to reach 10 million beneficiaries, and we intend to do this by expanding to 10 new countries. So thank you very much. This is what I have for you in terms of the post-harvest loss venture and what we've been doing so far. Thank you.
Perfect. Is the microphone? Yes, it's working. So now we actually have questions from the panelists that you're going to hear later. We are going to ask, do you have any questions to Olipa? Like anybody who's volunteering? Maybe Manon? No? You want? Salia? Okay. You're going first.
Can you tell me what are the biggest challenges that you have for taking this forward?
Okay. I think one of the biggest challenges, which has also been, I think, a learning point, has been crowding in the private sector to see that they need to go a step further, apart from just producing what they have in terms of solutions and putting them at the doorstep of their factories, but they need to engage the communities. So that demand creation, not just coming from, I think, the public sector, but the private sector also taking a step to be able to go out there, create demand, and offer the different solutions that could actually benefit majority of the rural communities. It has been a challenge, but I think it has also been an opportunity, because I think sensitizing them, you see most of them coming on board, because once they do that, it creates demand for their products as well.
Very nice. Other questions? Yeah, Tamer?
Thank you, Olipa. A small question about your expansion strategy, because different countries means also different type of technologies needed, different crops and so on. So can you elaborate a little bit on this?
Okay. So I think one of the things that the venture does is we'll adapt to the country. So even the 4 countries that we're currently in, the contexts are very different. And that also means even the types of crops and the technologies that are needed are actually very different. So what we do is go in and understand the context of the country. What technology would actually have probably the highest impact in terms of reducing post-harvest losses. And we do this by, first of all, doing a detailed mapping of what is currently there, the challenges, and where we can go in. And through that modeling, working with public, private sector, even the rural communities themselves, we're able to come up with probably a strategy or a solution in terms of what we need to do and where we need to do and which part of the value chain would have the highest impact. And this is how we've been able to do that. So the strategy right now, in terms of expansion, I think we're trying to focus more around Africa, but also looking at where the need is the most.
So we're almost at time. A quick one, like, yes. Do you happen to need any funding?
Yes, so please join us to be able to support rural households to reduce their losses, because I think what they produce is lost, and that can actually have a significant improvement in terms of our livelihoods. And with that, for the 10 new countries, we need funding of $8.5 million annually, and that translates to about $850,000 per country per year.
Well, thanks so much. So give it up for Olipa. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now, just thinking about the climate impact of this, right? Like if you lose 40 to 50% of the food and it never enters the food system, like imagine like the climate impact of that wasted energy, like all the agriculture. Now, which brings me to our next innovation. And so, Vidyut, over to you. It's exciting and I'm looking forward to seeing this.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Vidyut. I'm a biomass technologist by training, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Takachar, and today I'm going to talk a bit about how we harvest value from agricultural and forest waste. So Sukhdev is a rice farmer based in northern India who has 3 tons per acre of rice straw left over in his farm after harvest, and he doesn't know what to do with it. So the quickest way for him to get rid of this rice straw is to take a matchstick and set it on fire. And this is also the cheapest way for him. And when millions of farmers like him set their agricultural waste like rice straw, sugarcane trash, coconut shells, etc. on fire, it creates a horrible smoke and smog situation, not only in and around their farms, but also in cities nearby. But this is also wasted opportunity. Studies say that more than $120 billion worth of crop and forest residues is just burnt in the open worldwide. And this could otherwise be used to create value for rural communities. But we've also known for a very long time that crop and forest waste can be used to create valuable products like fuels, fertilizers, activated carbon, etc. However, how its use is not scaling. Now, why is this so? The answer lies in the nature of these wastes itself, that they're very loose, wet, and bulky, thus making it very difficult for them to be transported over long distances. Fertilizers, activated carbon, etc. While also at the same time reduce the logistic costs of transporting this waste significantly. Furthermore, this equipment can be taken directly to the doorstep of the farmers, thereby help creating value at their location for them. So we have developed such a technology that does not require any external source of energy for the thermal process, thereby making it suitable to be deployed in remote rural areas, and have 3 patents on the same. We've also shown that our equipment is able to eliminate greater than 95% of smoke as compared to open burning of biomass, as this image illustrates. Our fertilizer project in Kenya and India shows that we are able to create and we are able to increase the yield of farmers on average by 27%, thereby also increasing the net income by up to 50%. And this we do by converting their agricultural waste into a carbon-negative biochar-based fertilizer product. This is also a carbon removal tool, where our project in Kenya is measured to show about 370 kgs per acre of CO2 equivalent emissions removed and 730 kgs per acre of CO2 equivalent emissions avoided. Till now, we have worked with 7,000 farmers, added $1,000 of rural revenue, used about 10,000 tons of agricultural waste, and sequestered close to 11,000 tons of CO2 equivalent emissions. And we want to connect farmers worldwide to the byproduct market. So in 10 years' time, we aim to remove 1 gigaton of CO2 equivalent emissions, mitigate 2 gigatons per year of CO2 equivalent emissions, and create $2 billion per year of revenue. And if we have access to just $1 million of additional funding, it would help 100,000 additional farmers increase their crop, but also at the same time, close to 75,000 tons per year of CO2, avoid 150,000 tons per year of those emissions. So join us in our mission, which is supported and endorsed by reputed organizations such as Breakthrough Energy of Bill Gates, Elon Musk's X Prize, the Earthshot Prize, and the World Food Program, and help turn farmers convert their farm trash into cash. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good. So let's see if we have any questions from, yes, Mano.
Yeah, looks fantastic what you're doing. One question, so how much does one machine cost? And how many seasons does a farmer need to offset that cost and go into revenue and profitability?
So we realized that in order to scale the adoption of the machine, we need to give the equipment out on rent or a subscription model to farmers. So we're developing a business model in a way where farmers can rent the equipment out from us rather than investing it upfront.
Thank you, Vidyut. Are there any barrier to entry to your competitors?
The current crop of technologies that exist that produce similar products are essentially large-scale, centralized, capital-intensive units, whereas our approach has been to have smaller units deployed closer to farms. That's the biggest advantage we have, and we have a unique recipe within our machine, which is the intelligence of how it processes different kinds of agricultural waste into different kinds of bioproducts, which not all hardware in the space can do. So that we think is our unique barrier to entry for other competitors.
So we have time for one more, maybe. Yeah.
Are there any negative environmental effects from, for example, removing the dead wood, and are there impacts on the local biodiversity? Also, by avoiding the burning, whether that has any negative effects to your knowledge?
Right. So we make sure that we work with agricultural waste, which is a true waste to farmers, which they usually end up burning in the open, and not work with first-generation biomass where you create plantations just for the sake of bioenergy. So this waste is either just burnt up by farmers, or it is just meant to rot away, which is even worse because it then gives methane emissions. So we work with essentially rice straws or rice husk, which is a true waste to farmers. So in that sense, we avoid any of those problems that the biomass industry earlier used to face.
Well, very good. Well, give it up again for Vidyut. Thank you very much. Well done. So also, if you want to meet somebody who has funding from Bill Gates, Elon Musk, and Prince William, go seek out Vidyut later. So, next up, it's my great pleasure to introduce my dear colleague, Mathieu. And he's going to talk about yet another exciting innovation. Over to you, Mathieu.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Looks like these microphones are better for short people than the tall ones. Huh? I guess you hear me a little bit better. Yeah, still not? Okay, cool. So, I am Mathieu Dubreuil. Oh yeah, that's much better. I'm Mathieu Dubreuil, and I'm leading the climate risk insurance team for WFP. I took this picture in Madagascar in the Great South 18 months ago, where the communities were facing famine-like conditions because of several consecutive droughts. People were actually migrating to the nearest town for the fun to actually find food and possibly some work. They had planted during the long rains in November and lost all their maize. They had replanted when I took that picture for the short rains and had again lost all their maize because of the drought or pest. And so, well, it's very much illustrating what we've been doing with the World Food Programme. The rural communities in vulnerable countries need to have not one solution, but an integrated package of solutions that help them manage their climate shocks. So WFP has developed this R4 initiative that has four pillars. The first one, which is the basis, is about disaster risk reduction. When the participants engage in this component, it's reducing their overall risk exposure to climate shocks, but also improving their farming practices. And when they engage in this component, WFP pays the insurance premium so that they can access climate risk insurance products. And as we're helping them building their resilience and increasing their income generation, we expect them to start contributing more in cash to the insurance premium so that at the end of the process, they can actually pay the whole premium. We have two other components that are very important. The risk retention one is about basically savings, which is helping them to absorb the more frequent and less severe shocks, while insurance is focusing on the more catastrophic ones, because insurance cannot cover all the shocks. And savings are also very much important because these participants usually don't have access to microfinance solutions, and so the savings can help them invest a little bit more into inputs, into their technologies, increase their productivity, their income generation, and progressively save more and pay more the premium. We started this initiative in 2011 in Ethiopia, and in 2021 we had 380,000 households that were benefiting from this integrated package. The packages were very different from one country to another, and we're working on the 3 continents. The 380,000 households represent more or less 2 million beneficiaries, which is quite substantial, but definitely not enough. And we were working in 2021 in 14 countries. You're having like a different figure here because it's also covering the macro insurance programs, which are more at the national level. I wanted to tell you a little bit more about one specific example, and not because my colleague Olipa is here, but about Zambia, which is, I think, a very unique one. WFP is implementing this R4 initiative in the south of the country. The risk reduction component is about the application of conservation agriculture principle that is promoted by the Ministry of Agriculture and FAO, and WFP was introducing a weather index insurance product. The Ministry of Agriculture has introduced a subsidized input package for 1 million farmers. In this subsidized input package, you also had an index insurance product, but the ministry needed to have a bit of support to better understand the product that they were introducing to the farmers, that they were distributing, but also to improve it. So WFP and Columbia University undertook a massive data collection process in 1,600 locations to better understand what were the years where the farmers were actually experiencing the biggest droughts or even excessive rain. And with that, we worked with the task force to improve the product, to introduce it to these 1 million farmers. And as this was actually being rolled out, we started working with the ministry with other components, particularly on livestock insurance, but also on access to market and market information. And I think that's very important. Basically, my point here is that WFP is not trying to sell insurance. We're not an insurance company. We're not a broker. We're not of that. But we're trying to make sure that the farmers, the smaller farmers, have access to a suite of solutions that will help them to manage their climate shocks, their climate risk, and also to build their resilience at the physical level, but also at the financial level. The financial protection is very important. So we're trying to rebuild like better products, more affordable products, so that ultimately they can really deal with that on their own. And so I really hope that we will be able to support us and to scale it up in more countries and to reach about 2 million beneficiaries by 2026. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Mathieu. So, do we have any questions of the esteemed panel? Yes, go ahead. You still have the microphone.
Thank you very Thank you very much. It's interesting and, of course, difficult to present in a short pitch to the detail may be required. But I'm curious, I think you mentioned the part of the product is to help farmers adapt well, I call it adapt because I'm with the Adaptation Fund, but reduce risks. And that is, could you say a little bit more about how that works and how that affects, I guess, the premium?
So the adaptation part, the risk reduction part is very much adapted to what exists in the country already. So in Zambia, it's conservation agriculture. In some other countries, it's asset creation programs of WFP. In some others, it can be actually post-harvest loss management. That's the case in Burkina. So it really depends. Unfortunately, the actual impact on the premium is not very clear, and reinsurers don't really take that into account. So because it's index insurance, we really adjust the premium mostly based on the frequency of payments. But for that, as I was saying, insurance is really there for the most catastrophic shocks. And we really try to align with the savings so that we have a very clear alignment. Bad year, but not catastrophic, you use your savings. Catastrophic year, you use your savings and your insurance. And so ultimately, I definitely hope that we'll be able to reduce the premium cost, but this is a very long-term basis.
Okay, Manon, yeah, wait, there you go.
So just a question, so you're not an insurance company yourself, but you're kind of the middleman in between. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on that. And so in how many countries are you at the moment, and how many countries do you intend to be in the next 5 years?
So in 2021, we're in 14 countries, and by the end of this year, we will be at 20 countries. And we're still hoping, we're trying to find the right balance between opening new countries and scaling up, because the more countries you open, after it takes a bit more time to actually scale that up. But we're not exactly the middleman. I mean, we're providing a smart subsidy process, and we're trying to bring together this integrated climate solution. But we work with local insurance companies. Very often, in a lot of cases, we're actually developing the products with technical service providers like Columbia universities, but also private ones. And we're sometimes also bringing the reinsurance industry. It really depends on how far and how much developed the insurance business, the insurance market is actually advanced. So, if you take the example of Malawi when we started, or even Zambia, they really expected us to bring the reinsurers to develop the whole process, to develop the distribution. In some of the countries like Kenya, they're a lot more advanced, and so they didn't just needed WFP to bring that portfolio and to integrate it.
So we're right on time, but quick question and answers. What's the biggest things you need so that it really goes to scale? What do you need?
Well, it's primarily money, to be honest. And I mean,
okay.
If we want to reach this 2.5 million beneficiaries, which is households, which is 10 million beneficiaries, is roughly around 100 million for the next 5 years. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mathieu. Give it up to Mathieu. Well, it's also a good example for any insurance companies in the house or online. So if you see Mathieu's contact details, contact him. We do need more funding, but also private sector. This is, I think, a great example for it's a sustainable business model where actually business model can help offset these types of risks and adaptation measures also, where it's not necessarily just humanitarian funding. So our last pitch. Let's get it on. So Jenny, over to you for H2Grow Hydroponics.
Thank you, and hi everyone. I'm Jenny Wilson. I work for the World Food Programme as the Climate Change Account Manager. And today I'm going to be talking to you about H2Grow, which is a hydroponics initiative. So we've heard the figures. We know that food insecurity is rapidly increasing around the world. It's 3 times as much as it was just 3 years ago. And we know that climate change is a huge part of that. And one of the reasons for this is that climate shocks and stresses make it very difficult for farmers and communities to grow food. We all know some of the more obvious reasons for that. Climate shocks, floods and storms, they destroy crops, but there's a few other factors that are involved. Traditional agriculture requires regular and reliable supplies of water, and climate change is disrupting that. Also, limited availability and access to land. One of the factors that is affecting this, climate change, is triggering displacement. And so communities who live in refugee camps, in IDP camps, in informal urban settlements, they don't necessarily have access to land, and that affects the amount of food that they can grow. And then seasonal limitations. Traditional agriculture relies on regular and reliable seasons, and climate change is, of course, affecting that. And then the final one is lack of fertile soil. If land is degraded by climate impacts, it affects the amount of food that farmers can grow. So at WFP, we thought of different ways that we could tackle this, using innovation, of course. And so we came up with H2 Grow, which is a hydroponics initiative that uses 90% less water and 75% less space than traditional farming. And it also has a faster growth cycle, and it doesn't require any soil. So currently this program is in 23 countries across Africa and the Middle East. And it supports farmers to grow food in impossible places. They can grow animal feed, they can grow vegetables, which not only improves their food security, but also their nutrition. And H2 Grow isn't just about the physical impact on the ground. We're also using technology and digital platforms to scale up that impact. We're currently trialing an asset-based loan model in Kenya, whereby farmers can come together and receive a loan in the form of a fully functional hydroponics greenhouse, which they then have to pay back over 3 years. We also have an H2 Grow app and an H2 Grow platform where hydroponics users can access online training. They can come together and learn from other hydroponics users and share their expertise and knowledge. So we're currently in 23 countries, and we've so far supported 73,000 farmers and their families, and we have an ambitious plan to double that impact in 2023. So I think it's very, very crucial that we use such innovative solutions, not only to support farmers to cope with the changing climate, improve their food security and their nutrition as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No, I think this is one of the really exciting solutions also where, of course, it depends on the context, but it's also where, displaced people, or like when you're living in the middle of a desert or like in urban areas, sometimes the people that WFP serves, it's like communities that are cut off from employment opportunities. Otherwise, it's such a great idea even to make like this hydroponics actually work, so that they actually can use their productive time and have a better nutrition also for the children. So really exciting. So let me see, are there questions? Yes,
Thank you. What is your capitalization target for the next phase, and how many people, households, or countries are you trying to reach with that? Thank you.
Yeah, so we're currently in 23 countries, and we've supported 73,000 farmers as well as their families, and we're looking to double that impact in 2023. And I will preempt the next question by saying that we need $1.38 million to do this.
Yeah, so if anybody's in the house who is like funding or interested in sustainable regenerative solutions, come see Jenny. Over to you.
I have a question. So basically, there is not really a kind of technology behind it, or you need a lot of energy or anything like that, like vertical farming. So it's completely organic in itself, yeah?
Yeah, and this is why it's such a fantastic solution in these scenarios, because it's low tech, it's adaptable, it uses local materials, so we really can use it in impossible places. Yeah.
So it's really low cost also. Like one hydroponic solution, how much does it cost to set it up, one of them?
I mean, this is actually and I can talk about this because this is one of the earliest innovations, which is now in the scaling phase, and it depends. Like there's household models, there's like kind of community models. Like the Kenya version that you saw on the screen is about $2,000 at current costs. And the team also believes that, if it is produced at scale, you could get this down to maybe like $1,000 even. But it's like very low cost, very basic, even, reusing jerry cans and so on. I feel we are at time. We actually need to get to our panel, but I want to give it up to Jenny. Thanks so much again. Really great pitch. And so with this, let me actually invite our panelists to the stage. And before that, while we're setting up, let's roll the video, please.
We're facing unprecedented challenges to global food security right now all over the world. So in the past year alone, just to give you some examples, the toxic combination of conflict, climate change, and COVID has plunged nearly 300 million more people into food insecurity.
Well, thank you for the panelists to come up here. So hope you enjoyed the video. And like, I think we were probably expecting that it takes a longer time for us to set up, but like we were a lot quicker. So, but let's get straight to it. Like, let me introduce my fellow panelists, and I'm really happy to have you here. And maybe just to say, like, what's your name? What do you do? Like, really quick. I start with Manon.
My name is Manon Littek. I'm the founding partner of the Green Generation Fund, and we invest into food tech and green tech companies.
My name is Tamer Taha. I'm the advisor to the Egyptian Minister of International Cooperation on innovation, digitalization, and entrepreneurship.
My name is Saliha Dabardzik, and I'm in charge of the innovation program at the Adaptation Fund.
So quite a diverse panel, and I'm really happy to have you here because also it's the first time that actually startups and innovation in the food space coming into a broader climate context here at COP. Now, maybe let me start with Tamer. Like, there was something called the Climate Tech Run. Tell us about this. What is it, and why is it relevant?
So, Climate Tech Run is an initiative organized by the Egyptian Ministries of International Cooperation, Communications and Information Technology, and Environment, in partnership with a long list of partners, including World Food Program, Google, USAID, Afrexim Bank, and UNDP, and others. And the idea is to bring a voice to the startups and digital artists to COP, bring their ideas, their innovations. So we got more than 420 applications in a matter of 1 month. From 77 countries, and these ideas were filtered, and we invited the top 15 finalists, and we were happy to have Bernard as one of the judges, and we had 5 winners, including a special prize for the African startups. And the idea is to, we at the ministry, our role is to coordinate among the different development agencies and different international organizations. Instead of having a competition from each of them, we said, why not to combine all these efforts into one big competition, And yeah, I think it's by so far, I think the biggest COP startup competition. So we are very proud to have it.
Yeah, no, and I have to say, like, if you get the chance to check them out, it's really exciting. It's the first ever official startup competition at COP. So also congratulations to the Ministry of International Cooperation for actually making it happen. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you.
But then maybe, Manon, like, you're a venture investor. Like, you could say, like, like climate change. Is there any opportunities in innovation and technology? Where do you see the biggest ones actually in the climate change or context that you're working on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think food tech or changing our food system is really one of the biggest opportunities at the moment, because 25%, as you stated at the beginning, of CO2 emissions come really from our food system. And I think on the long term, we have to succeed to increase the output, but in a sustainable way. And I think there are several levers to do that in a carbon efficient way. One of it is really regenerative agriculture. I think that's becoming especially important this year because it's resilient to different weather conditions, but also if we just improve the soil carbon capturing possibilities by 0.4%, we would be able to reduce all CO2 emissions of all humankind completely. So it's a big topic. And I think the second topic is really diversified proteins, because mass animal production is really mainly responsible for the main CO2 emissions. And there are new technologies like precision fermentation, biomass fermentation, so the high-tech version of the hydroponics, what we've heard early on.
And if you don't know Manon, she's like the rock star of Impact Ventures. So like, can you share like what's the size of your fund, just to give the audience like a feeling for that?
Well, it's a newly formed 100 million fund. We are based in Berlin, but we invest in Europe and internationally.
So it's only a 100 million euro fund. So like, well, it's okay. No, so congratulations. Then maybe Salia. So like, you're a multilateral entity like the Adaptation Fund. Why are you interested in innovation? Is that something that you think is going to be important?
Yes, of course. If you've seen the Adaptation Gap report, you will see that there is a huge gap to be filled, and the finance is just not there. And so the question is, how do we really make progress and adapt and avoid losses and damages and all these things with the limited amount of funding that's currently available? And innovation is one way to do that, to just get to the next level, find the solutions that are transformational, that are more effective and cost effective. And so that's what we're looking for. So we set up a bunch of funding windows in order to encourage our partners and our national implementing entities and innovators that we don't know yet to come and apply and bring their best forward.
No, and I think also maybe for the audience, I mean, a lot of people will know the Adaptation Fund, but in order of size, can you give us like a order of magnitude, like what your annual like investments or budgets are?
Oh, it's a few 100 million. I mean, at the moment, our portfolio is just, I think, 2 million short of $1 billion in size. We just had a fairly successful resource mobilization for this year, which well, we'll let the press release speak for itself.
No, but like I think it's also one of those elements where, of course, like when you look at the challenges ahead of us, climate action needs more funding, there needs to be more political support, but like it's also really reassuring that there is action happening. There's also like that, like the Adaptation Fund, you're actually getting funding, you're getting pledges, so that you can move forward. So, and I think this is one of the elements of like, there's also still hope. It's not just like doom and gloom all the time, right? But then maybe let me go back to Tamer about like in the startup competition, like you're working in a ministry. So I imagine this, talking with your minister, like how did that conversation go? Like you were saying like, wow, we really want to work with startups. Like why is that something that's important to you as a ministry?
Well, let me start by the last sentence in the short video that we just saw, that you mentioned solutions for climate action now. The key word is now. Because startups are agile, they are responsive, they can focus on one specific problem and try to turn it into an opportunity, a business opportunity, a viable opportunity, an investable opportunity. So this is what we need as a government. We need to be fast enough to respond to the changes. I didn't know that climate change was like on its impact on food security was multiplied by 3 right? You mentioned 3 in just the past 3 years. So I doubt that any big organization can adapt to this change without use of technology and innovation. So that's why or counting on startups and counting on technologies that are agile and responsive is crucial. So this is from one side. From the other side, something important is turning challenges into opportunities, and this is the essence of startups. That especially in climate action, that pollution, food security, problems in mobility, urbanism, and so on, can be turned into business opportunities by these startups. So that's why we're pushing or encouraging and promoting startups to be part of the solution instead of being part of the problem.
No, and that's also very, like, I mean, you know, a lot of forward-looking like perspective, like as a ministry, because like it's one of the aspects of like a lot of times it is an aspect of like, well, you know, startups are risky, but then you know there's also the impact, of course, that you can have. And like Manon, you actually took some of your portfolio startups to COP. Like, I don't know, what was their experience? Was that worthwhile for them? Did they benefit from being here?
Yeah, it was absolutely worthwhile because it's really the most important. At the moment, if you want to achieve something in climate change, so all the decision makers, all the big corporations are here, and I think for the portfolio companies it was really the chance to present themselves, to make great connections, to build corporations, but also really to show tangible solutions, because we have a lot of talking here, and I think it's really, really important to go into action, and I there presented some of the solutions.
So then, maybe like you have those startups, for-profit startups, Salia, you typically like in the funding decision, like it's you're probably not the one who's funding for-profit startups, but you might be collaborating with them. So like how would you see like what's important for collaboration? Like, you know, you are also coming here, of course, because it's important, but like what has been the biggest value from an innovation sphere? Have you found anything exciting while here at COP? Are there new connections that you made also in that innovation sphere? Like,
yes.
Tell us about it.
Yes, of course. First of all, thank you for inviting me to be part of the panel. It is really inspiring to see the solutions and to meet other people who are passionate and working very hard on these issues. And I think that's what the Adaptation Fund's work is really all about. It's about making those connections, supporting those partners who are able to make those connections as well. Look, climate change is a global problem, but the impacts are local, and the solutions have to be local. And so the challenge for us, we are a multilateral, you know, we serve at the pleasure of the countries. How do we make sure that the funding, that the support gets to where it's needed? And when we talk about entrepreneurship and innovators, we really mean everybody. Everybody who has the energy and the will should be able to access funding and should be able to contribute. So that's what we're aiming for.
Nice. And I mean, like, it's one of the things where I'm really happy that this conversation about startups and innovation can actually happen at COP. And I agree with you, right? Like, it's like we actually getting the inspiration, showing what's possible, inspiring others, I think for me is so important, because a lot of times it's not just about like what we need to do in the future. I see the challenges ahead of us, like in the negotiations that are going on. I hope they're going to actually come to a great conclusion, but at the same time, we need those new solutions. We need innovation. We need startups, and we don't need them in 3 years from now. We need them right now. Maybe, so as a final round, I'm asking the three of you, like, what's your wish that's supposed to happen between between now and like the next COP? Like maybe a startup that you want to see succeed, or it's like funding or commitment that you want to see. Like, what's one wish that you're having? Tamar, I'm starting with you.
I think maybe by next COP, I wish to have a proper mechanism for multi-stakeholder partnerships between investors, corporate, governments, and international organizations to bring up these technologies to become a real implementation. Since we are talking about the COP, the implementation COP, and the slogan is "Together for Implementation." I think we should come together, the key actors in the startup ecosystem, for climate actions.
Thank you, Manon.
I would like to see that food becomes even more central role at the COP. I think it's the first year that we see a Food for Climate pavilion, but it's still very, very small. And I was also a bit disappointed that I didn't really see it in the catering, kind of future food, alternative protein, and so on. It's very much meat-based, and for a climate conference, I think it's actually a bit a shame, to be honest.
Okay, Salia, your wish.
It's very hard to come up with just one wish. I would love to see more excitement around innovation. I also want, for example, the Adaptation Fund and other partners to do a better job at basically talking about the opportunities that are available and connecting with the partners that we can do something together in order to make a bigger impact. That's my ambition.
Wow. Thank you so much. So a big applause for the panel. You can stay here while I close yours. Thank you very much, and thanks for being with us. Now, everybody who's joined us here and online, let me just say thank you again for being with us. You're an inspiration to us. You are stakeholders in the innovation ecosystem. You're pushing the climate action, not just by doing the same thing over and over again, but by going new ways. And I just have to say, like, every innovator, everybody who you've seen like pitching here today, like, this is why we're doing this. We're trying to find those new ways. We're trying to help them go to scale and ultimately benefit some of the poorest people on the planet that have no other choice. But, you know, with those innovations and startups, I believe we can have a chance to really make climate action happen at scale, and not next year at COP28, but right now. So with this, thank you very much. Thanks for being with us, and see you soon again. Maybe at our next pitch event on the 30th of November, focused on climate action. Thank you very much.